Just a month ago, President Trump praised rescue efforts by citizens in hurricane-affected areas. But at a political rally in Houston this week, his tone changed to what some say is mockery. Jacqueline Quinn spoke with a member of the Louisiana Cajun Navy and brings us the story.
I also want to thank some of the heroes of Hurricane Harvey who join us today, including members of the incredible Cajun Navy.
At times, President Donald Trump has praised the efforts of volunteers, especially with the Cajun Navy. At other times, it's not so clear.
They want to go out and they want to go into the hurricane to show their wife how great they are.
Speaking at a rally in Houston Monday, while Trump didn't name names, it seemed he mocked citizen volunteers, some who could have been part of a local Cajun Navy chapter that showed up to help.
And next time, all you guys and gals, when there's a hurricane, do me a favor, don't take your boat out.
Clyde Kane is founder of the Louisiana Cajun Navy. His group has been volunteering to rescue people through all kinds of disasters since Katrina, and he's heard comments like this before.
What he's talking about, I have no idea where he's getting his information.
Today, Kane is in Austin preparing to help with high water rescues caused by recent heavy rains.
So hearing those comments, how do you feel about that?
If it wasn't for us and then all of the other grassroots organizations and volunteers, us inspiring them to get out in boats and kayaks and everything else, there would have been a lot of bodies that had been picking up and had been accounting for.
The remarks don't sit well with Kane.
The first responders were inundated. 911 was shut down in Harvey.
Even as recently as Hurricane Florence, Trump thanked the Cajun Navy. And then yet again in Houston, Trump thanked everyone but volunteer groups.
FEMA was great, law enforcement was great, first responders were great.
And Kane says his volunteers only step in where and when needed. And all the effort is done to save lives, not for show.
We just want to save people.
Jacqueline Quinn, Eyewitness News.
The U.S. Coast Guard estimates it saved about 11,000 people during Hurricane Harvey. The Louisiana Cajun Navy self-reported it saved between 8,000 to 10,000 people.